Welcome to the Milo Yiannopoulos Show on Podcast One, broadcasting live from Mordor, the Borg Cube, and Voldemort's lair all at the same time. This show is hosted by Milo Yiannopoulos, the most fabulous supervillain on the internet. Sorry, no offense, but it's true. The Milo Yiannopoulos Show is brought to you by Breitbart.com.
Turn that vibrate off.
We're definitely on the Milo Show.
We just turn it off. My God, you're listening to the Milo Yiannopoulos Show. I'm here with Alex Marlowe, who's technically my boss, but is behaving like a child. What are you doing, Alex? Turn the vibrate on your phone off. He came into my hotel room. We're in Cannes, by the way. We are on location in Cannes in the south of France, here for the film festival, and we'll talk to you a little bit about why we're here and what's exciting about that later. But all I can tell you at the moment is he just barges into my hotel room at 12:30 a.m. and the phone is vibrating, buzzing on the bed. I can't get him to leave, and in the end, I just said, fine, let's record the news segment.
I know I'm in Milo's hotel room, and I know a lot of your fans probably would love this vantage point, this behind the curtains view of your lifestyle.
It's very dull.
People will be disappointed to hear my observations, but I'll give a few. First of all, no water-based lubricant anywhere in plain sight.
That's because I use silicon-based lubricant.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe there's some of that. There's an ironing board, which makes sense, because it's not a coincidence when you dress nicely. It takes effort.
Well, it takes someone else's effort, but yes, I do show up looking nice.
Well, the bed's right there, so you can keep an eye on them while you're lounging.
While they're ironing my clothes.
Yeah, while they iron your clothes.
I tend to lie prone, actually.
Oh,
as anyone who follows me on Twitter will have figured out.
I didn't know that.
Well, I just don't bother to get up afterwards.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to slip back into boss mode here. And then you also have...
Speaking of slipping it, what?
And you also have world's most interesting cell phone charger.
That's not quite how you described it when you came in.
No, but that's because we weren't on the air then. But right. It is a sparkly green, where it looks like there is a snake moving inside of the cell phone from the wall mount. And I'm impressed. Where did you find this concoction?
I think it was in Best Buy. It's a great a moment of shame for me to admit that I'd ever been into a Best Buy, but I have. And I went in there because I needed... What did I need? I don't know, something that only Best Buy sells, a mouse or something.
Well, you found something amazing, a true gem.
It is lovely. If you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, my God, what else have I downloaded to listen to?
But if you tweeted a 6-second Vine, I'm pretty sure you
No. If you've ever seen this thing, if you're listening and you don't know what it is, it's basically this charging cable, and it looks like, as Alex said, it looks like the lights move up from the wall into the device, and you know it changes speed depending on how fast it's charging. Well, I think it does. I haven't really worked out the pattern. I got 5 of them in 5 different colors. They're amazing. We should talk about the news.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's the big news of the week, which is of course the biggest news of the week in the internet, and news that I'm at the center of, we will save for the second item, because I want first of all to explain to people why we're in the south of France, and it is not solely, not exclusively, to eat paella and drink champagne and sun ourselves. We are here for a good reason. Why is Breitbart?
I've done no sunning yet.
No, we have done the other things, though. Why is Breitbart in Cannes?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, thanks a lot, Milo, for having me back on the program, even though I consider myself one of the founders of the program.
We had so many complaints after you appeared last time. I'm doing you a favor by letting you have it on again.
No, I got a great response, and I know that's because you're a good interviewer and great conversationalist. So we make a lot of jokes, but you're doing an amazing job, and you do an incredible job in the interview with Phil Robertson, which I think comes up next in this segment, and you guys are going to love it. I watched the interview, which did take place on a yacht. If you can picture Milo interviewing Duck Commander on a yacht.
63-foot yacht.
Okay, so
63 meters, much bigger than that.
And so now you see why Milo puts up with all of us at Breitbart, and why Breitbart puts up with Milo. It is for that specific moment.
We exist in intricate symbiosis.
And we're also going to have video of that, too, so that's pretty exciting. But we're in Cannes because Steve Bannon, our executive chairman, as well as many of his partners, including Dave Bossie of Citizens United, and Peter Schweitzer, one of our Breitbart editors, they have 2 movies in the market at Cannes here, because Cannes is not just a festival. It's become a market for international films. I think these have been the 2 most covered films by the media of the entire festival so far. And they're not in competition, so they're not going to win anything. The first one is Clinton Cash, That's based on the best-selling book by Peter Schweitzer, Breitbart senior editor at large, one of the best historians and also just a really nice guy. And it goes into the history of Bill and Hillary Clinton and their pay-for-play schemes, their corporate cronyism that they did, where they would basically cut deals while Hillary was as Secretary of State. If you connect the dots, while she was Secretary of State, people and countries who either donated a lot of money or had a lot of money funneled to the Clinton Foundation or to Bill Clinton's pocket for him to do speeches, those types of people seem to get more favorable deals from the U.S. government while Hillary was running the State Department. And there's smoking gun after smoking gun. And it's the sort of thing not just for conservatives. And Milo, I know you saw the film. We'll talk about the other film momentarily, but I want to get your take on it. I think this is something for liberals, for libertarians, for Bernie Sanders supporters, for people who are skeptical of the Clintons. And my takeaway after watching the film is that they are really the least liberal, the least progressive people. They're quite the most regressive choice we could make for president. They are a return to the past, a less transparent past. And let's not forget, we're literally putting in people who were in the White House 20 years ago. I thought we were supposed to move forward. I thought that was progress. We're literally, they're a throwback. And when you see the corruption, them cutting deals so that, no pun intended, the rainforest will get chopped down and the wood would get shipped to China to enrich their friends, it's very compelling stuff, and not just for conservatives.
Well, that's the shocking thing for me. It doesn't surprise me that any politician is corrupt, because they're basically all awful people, with the exception of the ascendant blonde-haired savior, our Lord and Savior, God Emperor, Donald Trump. But with the possible exception, I know you're not as all-in on Trump as I am, with that possible exception, they're all awful, and it doesn't surprise me that they would be corrupt. But you know what shocked me the most, and I didn't know this going into the movie. I mean, I'll be completely accurate. I knew it because I read the book.
Yeah.
But before the book movie thing, reading the book in preparation for coming to see that, I had no idea, despite reading, High Crimes and Misdemeanors by Ann Coulter, which focuses on Bill, really.
Right.
I had no clue just how extraordinarily the Clintons violate every sacred tenet of progressivism. These aren't just people who acted in their own financial interests and violated ethical boundaries and, who even knows about the legal ones. But these are people who were cutting deals that did awful things to Africa, awful things to Haiti, awful things to all of the places that progressives, that liberals are supposed to care about. And you say this is a backward step. It's exactly what we mean by the regressive left,
Right.
She is a president who is going to bring back identity politics, well, I say bring it back, is going to entrench identity politics in a big way. She's going to go all in on the crazy, nutty, fact-free, hateful feminism nonsense. She's going to go all in on Black Lives Matter. What's given me a little hope watching this film, and I think you're right to suggest that it's a good movie for libertarians as well as just conservatives, and even for disaffected liberals, which form so many of my readers and fans, of
Absolutely.
course. What's remarkable about this, I think, and I hope as many people get to see it as are able to, because I think it reminds people on the left, good people that we know, who are Democrats, so we don't necessarily agree with on politics, but we, respect the differences, we can still have them over for dinner, are going to watch this and be like, this is not a left-wing politician who represents my beliefs. This is not a person, this is not a family who I would be proud to have as president. And, I don't think anybody has really looked into properly or properly reported on or investigated the extent to which Bernie supporters are going to flood over to Donald Trump when Bernie drops out. But I wonder how many Democrats who aren't even into Bernie are going to vote for Trump as a protest vote against Hillary, partly as a result of seeing films like this and reading books like this.
Milo, I can already tell we can do the whole segment on just this topic. You give me so much to respond to. The Wall Street Journal had a column just this week suggesting that Bernie's biggest mistake has not been using the material in Schweitzer's book, Clinton Cash, because it is very friendly to his audience. So if you think you're a Bernie fan, if you're an anti-establishment liberal, then you should still check out this movie. He
doesn't want to talk about it, does he?
No,
he
doesn't.
said, I don't want to talk about the Hillary scandal. It's like, do you want to win or not, buddy?
Yeah, and it's either he's afraid of the Clintons or he's a fool, but one or the other for one.
Or possibly both.
Or quite possibly both.
These are not mutually exclusive.
He is 489 years old.
Actually, since you've been talking, he's had another birthday. I stole that joke from you.
I love it. I love it. That's my line.
I heard you do this on the radio on the way back.
You did. Also, Milo looked at his
magpie instincts came out.
Yeah, and Milo looked at his wrist. There was no watch, but there were some very elegant tennis bracelets.
I think it's my tell. I think I look at my pearls when I'm feeling guilty. Except I've taken them off so they don't rattle during this recording. Because all week on Breitbart News Daily, I've had these rattling pearls from the Radio France studio down at the Cannes Film Festival Palais, and they've been rattling on the radio. People have been DMing me saying, "Take your effing jewelry off." So I took it off for you for this.
Thank you.
But I think it's my tell. I think I look at my pearls when I'm feeling guilty.
Well, but that's not so bad. It's everyone has their little ways of soothing themselves. I know I have mine. We won't be talking about those on the podcast. But the film Clinton
Mrs.
Cash.
Marlowe, I'm sure, is grateful for that.
And she's a fan of yours, so she might actually listen to this one. Clinton Cash is the movie. It's only about an hour long. Hopefully it'll be on demand too. So you guys got to check it out, especially you younger people who don't remember the full history of the Clintons. Let me give you my favorite anecdote quickly, because this is one that I think should offend leftists as much as it should offend conservatives. Bill Clinton, during his administration, did a trip to Kazakhstan in the name of AIDS relief. And he gave a humanitarian award to a foreign despot named Nazarbayev, who's run Kazakhstan unopposed since the fall of the Soviet Union. And Bill Clinton said that he was starting an AIDS initiative there. Okay, there are certain countries in Africa in particular that have a rate of AIDS of 20-some-odd%. In America, I think it's something shocking. It's in the single digits, but
like
could
8 or something?
8 or 9%, I believe, and we could double check that, and I'm sure you all will and tweet us.
To tell us we were right.
But Kazakhstan has only a few thousand people with AIDS in the entire country. Yes. We're talking well under 1%. It is not even
exactly a global priority.
It is not even in the
top 50
ballpark. Yes, I don't think it's in the top 50. So why is he over there? Okay, well, Clinton friend Frank Justra, who they've done deals with, a Canadian mining mogul, gets cut a huge mining deal from Kazakhstan right after this. Then, months later, what do you see? Massive donations from Frank Justra to the Clinton Foundation. You see it. It's not that hard to connect the dots.
Pattern, isn't it? This is what happens with them. You can't ever quite nail them on anything, but there's this sort of vast catalogue of delightful coincidences that characterize the way the Clintons appear to do business.
And I got
X happens, and then Y happens.
Yes, and I got a little carried away there with the politics, and I know that's a cultural show, but here's why it matters, is this is being presented not in a textbook, but in a film, and it's a dramatic film with incredible imagery, and it's short, it's accessible, it's written in a way so you don't have to be a political junkie. And this is the beginning of what is hopefully a long process of conservatives getting into the entertainment world, knowing that the left has dominated there. Milo, I think that's what you're doing, is you're not just about facts and figures, but you're also about entertaining.
We love those too.
Well, you absolutely love those, and that's why the most entertaining conservatives still do love facts, like Coulter, for example. But it's more than that. You have to be able to engage in an artistic level to bring in the biggest audience. We're trying to do that.
Well, if you're listening to this show on Friday, you will be aware that we've had some fun this week, and along precisely those lines on the site, which we will leave to the readers who are sufficiently educated,
a bit of trolling,
and attentive to these things to recognize and remember for themselves. Now we have to move on.
Yeah,
there is another movie featuring, of course, the dot commander Phil Robertson.
Right,
but I'm going to talk to him in the second two segments because we record an interview this week.
Yeah, you'll hear all about Torchbearer in the next segment. And Milo, I know, was really touched by it and was interested in it. I watched him. Watch the film a little bit.
See, because we watched Clinton Cash next to one another, which felt a little bit gay.
Milo sat directly in front of me.
So I sat in front of you for Phil Robertson's film, and you got to see the back of my head, and you got to see me clutching my crucifixes and having tearful moments.
You're multiple.
Not quite.
You wear at least two.
I do. I wear at least two at all times, just to remind people that I'm really godly.
Yes, well, it's who would possibly forget that?
Well, let's talk about one more thing, because we've had such a good time. We're running way over time. It's been delightful. I want to talk about one more thing, and it is the big news of the week, and it is news, of course, that Breitbart and Milo Yiannopoulos are at the center of.
Yes.
And it is Facebook.
Yes.
So you'll be listening to this on Friday, probably, and if you are, then a couple of days ago, a load of what do we call them? We call them that word that I'm allowed to say on the show. That
You're allowed to say. I'm not going to say it, but you're allowed to.
You can say it.
Oh, I know I can. I don't need to.
Go on, say it.
I like to be mysterious,
Go
though.
on, say it.
No.
Go on, say
I'm not going to say cuck on your podcast.
There we go. Boom. Let's call them politely establishment conservatives, because I don't use horrible words like that, Alexander Marlowe. We watched in mild horror, shock, befuddlement, resignation, pick your word of confusion and dismay.
Right.
As conservatives lined up for a photo opportunity with Facebook. This is Facebook's way, if you have been following the story, of shutting down reports that their trending topics were being biased against conservatives, that conservative outlets and personalities and stories were being deprioritized by Facebook's human editors. This sort of sleight of hand always goes on with these social media companies. The implication of their public statements is always that everything's done by algorithm, that the trending topics reflect what people are talking about and what's popular. Well, the more you dig down, the more that comes out, you realize actually that not so much. Actually, there are people involved in putting those trending topics together. Why do we know this? Partly because Gizmodo reported it, and partly also because The Guardian released a PDF of the trending topic user guidelines for the staff, right? Well, algorithms don't read PDFs. People do. So we know this is happening. And also, of course, the censorship on Facebook we've already known is rampant. You know, they're teaming up with the German government to censor.
The German government thing is a big anecdote. That's a big data point.
But they do it everywhere they operate. You know, Zuckerberg seems to have a habit, this is a pattern with him, of bowing to government instruction on almost everything. And I use the word instruction advisedly. Anyway,
right.
All this stuff has been flying around Facebook for the last week or two. And a load of conservatives went up there to Menlo Park to talk to him about it, but they weren't, in my mind, quite the right people.
No.
Nobody there. I mean, there are only 2 people, I think, in that group under 50, and nobody in that group that speaks to anyone under 50, that has any readers or viewers under 50. I mean, you know, the only people there who are under 50 are people like Dana Perino from Fox, who's, the average Fox viewer is 67 years old. I think it's 69, in fact.
It's dropped down. Yeah, right.
It's going up. It's going up. Every time they do
lower.
Every time they do the survey, it goes up. Our view was a bit different. We didn't want to go to Menlo Park, have a photo op with Mark Zuckerberg,
right,
in effect become pawns of Facebook's PR machinery. What we wanted was something, more truthful and more transparent. We wanted Mark Zuckerberg to sit down with me and have an interview on camera on his own platform for half an hour.
His own platform. Okay, but why did we suggest that? And let me tell you why we suggested it as editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. The Milo is without question the best, most well-known conservative tech journalist on the planet. I couldn't tell you who's the second most well-known.
You said that, and I was like, that can't be true. But then I thought through it. Kara Swisher, Recode, much more famous than I am by most metrics, but definitely
but not the individual brands,
definitely
right? And not conservative.
Conservative tech journalists. I guess you're right, and I think you're also right. There's not a close.
So if their problem is that they are discriminating against conservatives, which is what the allegations are, again, anonymously sourced Gawker property. It's not a perfect piece of journalism, but we suspected that was true a long time ago, largely based off of what we know is happening in Germany. We know that Twitter's shadow banning. We know that Facebook is cutting massive checks to Hillary Clinton. We know that Google spends more time in the White House than anywhere else. We're very skeptical of these tech companies, and we have to accept them in certain ways and play ball with them in certain ways. But we know we're getting a raw deal. We know we're playing on their terms largely, and it's frustrating as conservatives, because we do very well on Facebook at Breitbart, because we're blessed to have a few really brilliant people like Winton Hall, our managing editor, who runs that team. But could it be better? We'll never know. But it sure sounds like
amazing. What is it? We've been in the top 25 engagement
for 6
on
months
Facebook
or so.
for 6 months solid.
15 currently.
And this is in spite of their gerrymandering.
In spite of this,
we've managed to sort of hustle and force our way into these charts by sheer amount of great content that we put out, that people love, that people share, that Facebook sort of can't really fight.
No, exactly. And what happened here is that what Facebook offered, they did not offer for us to have a fair fight on neutral terms. In fact, not even totally neutral. We want to offer it to their platform.
Well, it's in their office.
In their office. They want to stack the deck again. First of all, they said they didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so then why do we need a meeting?
It's like you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, okay. So they want a meeting. The meeting is, of course, cooked. on their terms. They're going to control how much is leaked out from it. Who knows if they're going to make people sign non-disclosure agreements. You know they're going to get a photo shoot out of it where they have everyone smiling and looking like they're simpatico. They're going to show that to their board members, and everyone's going to applaud. Well, we're not going to do that. We will play on neutral terms. If they would like to sit down, have a conversation, it doesn't even have to be a debate. It can just be an interview. But let's come up with something where Facebook actually communicates to the people they're alienating. And that's not just conservatives, by the way, Milo. As you know, young people are either not using Facebook or they're embarrassed they use Facebook.
Well, you told me about this, and I'm always ashamed when you tell me about things that I don't know before I find them out in other ways, but it seems to happen more all the time.
That's very harsh, but I'll take it as a compliment.
No, I meant it nicely. Yeah. The thing is, because I'm on tour, I'm doing my college tour, I'm sort of pulled in so many different directions. I don't always have, like, all of my feeds in front of me all day. Like,
right.
You're the sort of the beating heart of the Breitbart operation,
right.
kind of in the newsroom, as we affectionately call your office in DC.
Yes.
And so sometimes you send me things before I hear them, and you were the one who told me, in fact, that young people, and I've looked this up and I've discovered that it is true, young people are lying about being on Facebook because it's so uncool. They don't like the fact that they're on it. They're kind of on it because they sort of have to be, but they lie to pollsters about it.
Right.
And because the brand has no affection, no loyalty, no trust. That's a huge problem for Facebook.
They're very proud of Snapchat and Instagram, but they have no interest in saying they use Facebook. Right.
And the problem for Zuckerberg is if he wants people on his prestige platform, which is what Facebook is, it's fine. They own Instagram, they WhatsApp, whatever, they have lots of users on all these platforms. But if they want people on their prestige platform where they get the big ad dollars, where they can really sell stuff, and they want this young generation of mischievous, dissident, culturally libertarian, free-thinking, freewheeling young people, and I have a hunch that there's a hell of a lot more out of them than most people realize. And certainly we've seen that with Generation Trump,
yes.
the meme brigades and all the rest of it. This is not a few wacky right-wingers on the internet. This is a huge slice of the younger generations who do not like Facebook.
Yes.
Well, there are a limited number of journalists you could invite to Facebook who actually have an authentic relationship with those people. And of course, Breitbart and you and I are one of those
exactly. And look at who they got. They got people who don't like Donald Trump.
Cheetos encrusted Glenn Beck.
A nice, beautiful line. Cheetos encrusted Glenn Beck. For those of you, just Google it. Just Breitbart and Glenn Beck. You'll check the image section. That was an anti-Trump stunt of his. So they got Dana Perino from Fox from the Bush administration. The New York Times interviewed me at length about this. They only chose to use one quote in the article. I don't know why that is exactly, but that's their business. But what I talked about with them is they asked me, the person who's in charge of this sort of outreach that they're doing is a Bush administration person who now works at Facebook.
This is the token Republican at Facebook.
Yeah, well,
every company has the token woman in HR.
But here's the deal, Milo, and you're aware of this. That Trump's appeal is, I think there's a three-legged stool, which is fixing trade, fixing immigration, and anti-political correctness. Mm-hmm. These are three things diametrically opposed to the Republican establishment. So if you're getting people who like free trade, I'm doing the bunny ears with my fingers, which is essentially, and I asked Steve this on our SiriusXM program, have you seen any American cars since we've been here in Cannes? No, you see French cars, you see German cars, you see Japanese cars.
There's perhaps something to do with the fact that there aren't very many good ones, and it's a very long way.
I got it.
I mean this with
Japanese
love.
Cars. They're Japanese cars.
I mean this with love, but what American car would you ship to France?
I agree with that.
And what American car would you? I'm derailing your point, but
no, you're enhancing my point, which is that when you trust governments to be fair and to play by the rules, they don't do it. So the free trade, quote unquote, system isn't what people thought it was. And we could save that conversation for a later date. Immigration, we know that the Facebooks of the world, as well as the Republican establishment, wants open borders, really easy access to visas, and a lot of that is going to be at the expense of the American worker. Okay, Donald Trump and Breitbart, as well as a couple other candidates, have been opposed to the Bush policy on that. And then let's not get started with the freedom of speech, the rabble-rousers on the internet that Breitbart has a lot of affection for that are completely antithetical.
We occasionally even publish them.
Yeah, occasionally. but it's completely antithetical to the Republican establishment outlets. So who showed up for these things? Only the type of people who don't like Trump and who kind of like the Republican status quo, the ones that have been losing for a long time or giving us kind of mediocre administrations.
And it's an easy move for Facebook because these are people who are not going to give them too much trouble. They're going to show up, they get their photo opportunity at Facebook, and basically it's like, hey, I'm an influential conservative. What's interesting, what's funny, and I think this is what's going to annoy people more than anything else, is you've got like SE Cup posting, who's about as relevant to millennials as Google Plus.
Yeah, and is she a big Facebook person? Maybe she is, but I have
no idea. But they're all posting on their Facebook pages selfies from the aeroplane on the way there. I wonder who paid for the flights. We'll find out. Selfies in the Facebook offices. This is like a little. I know. You know what? And I'm going to finish on a serious point before we go to break. I have written for years about how credulous and how, you know what it is. I'm really, this was my major thing when I ran the kernel of my media company in Europe. This is why we became so unpopular so quickly. Very much in the Breitbart vein, but unpopular in a good way. It was how utterly credulous and hopeless technology journalists were. Their desperate need to be loved, to be, to have affection from the companies they were reporting on. They were almost like the marketing arm of the startup industry. And I wrote for years about how pathetic tech journalism was, from the blogs right the way up to Wired magazine. They're all just as bad as one another. What I never quite expected, although perhaps I should have, was the extent to which people with big platforms, people who host big shows on big networks, would sort of topple over in obeisance and obsequiousness to a corporation. Facebook is not a friendly tech startup there to help you. It is a global multinational corporation with its own interests that very often very often run contrary to yours. And it's so shocking to me, really is, the way in which they're all sort of showing off and celebrating on Facebook's own platform their trip to Facebook to apparently hold Facebook to account. Something is not right here. And I think people at home are going to see this. They're just going to find the whole thing distasteful. They're going to see exactly what we've seen in it, which is that it's all a stitch up and it means nothing. Thank God, you and I hate to praise one another and ourselves too endlessly, but thank God there are people around like us, and to give them their credit, some other bribing publications too, who've also come out. Sean Davis at the Federalist, they publish some stuff that I enjoy from time to time. He's published a very good column this week saying this is not on, it's not enough.
Brilliantly put. You're fantastic with words, Milo. That's why we love you. But the ACU, which is the group that puts on CPAC, Matt Schlapp over there, they're the only other group that I saw, I guess maybe the Federalist too, which I'd forgotten, that's boycotting. They had a great line, which they pointed out the problem conservatives have with Facebook is not about communication. It's about discriminating against conservatives, which they're denying that they're doing.
Whilst at the same time having a quick, guys, let's do a photo op to shut people up meeting.
Yes.
There's no problem, there's no problem. If there's a problem, there's a problem. Pick one.
How does that change that they're discriminating against conservatives? They need to vow not to do it. Apologize if they want. I'm not big into apologies, but then demonstrate 2-3 months down the road that they've improved.
Well, I think
maybe they need some credit. Well, what do you think?
I think it's worse than that for Facebook.
I would love to hear the interview.
Well, I want to hear Zuckerberg sit down with me too, because I think it would break the internet. Never mind Kim Kardashian's bottom. Mark Zuckerberg, ex-Milo Yiannopoulos.
Let's have some ideas.
Would be a really fun interview. But you know what? Here's the one thing I'll suggest to Facebook before we wrap up and we go to my interview earlier in the week with Phil Robertson about his new movie from the deck of a beautiful boat here in Cannes. My suggestion to Facebook is look at yourselves long and hard in the mirror, steel yourself, grit your teeth, brush your hair, and start thinking about hiring a few Republicans. Because a bit more ideological and political diversity, because diversity of thought is really ultimately the only diversity that matters, rather than superficial quotas about the number of women and blacks and gays you hire. A little bit of ideological diversity would do your company a world of good.
Here's the message to Facebook from Breitbart is don't do for us what we expect to be mistreated. You weren't shocked
do it for
at all. Do it for your own business model. Do it for the fact that half the country is conservative. And by the way, see how Donald Trump did in the primaries. There seem to be a growing group of people who are identifying with these values. Yes. And why do you want to alienate them? You want to be a global business.
With the most
Don't think it can't happen to you.
The most angry user group anywhere in technology. Twitter's users hate the company.
We want to be a part of Facebook. We think very hard about what we're putting on Facebook. We have algorithms. We're ready to play ball with you if you treat us fairly. But this could be the start of going down a very dark road, and they're dealing with it exactly the wrong way, which is they're lying that nothing is happening, and they're trying to give us a pat on the head. That's not acceptable. It's, again, exactly what I expect, so I'm not outraged over it because it's simply what I thought they would do. But why don't you impress us? Sit down with the best conservative tech journalist walking the planet right now and do 8 or 10 minutes and answer some questions. This is not a big deal, Mark Zuckerberg.
What's the
Let's
worst
do it.
that could happen?
Yeah,
I might hit on you.
That is a phrase.
I might hit on you.
maybe they're afraid of something. I don't think it's that though. I think it's a.
Even though he's white, a couple of billion does have an effect on a girl. All right, Alex Marlow, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a delight. When we come back after these messages, I sit down with Phil Robertson to talk about his new movie.
Breitbart.com.
You've been listening to the Milo Yiannopoulos Show. Ben Shapiro is short. Making an impression is all about contrasts. Listen to gangster rap in the afternoon and Wagner in the evening. Wear Louis Vuitton but smoke Newports. Lunch at Claridge's but dine at KFC. Why spend tens of thousands on a fancy car when you can make just as much of an impression stepping out of a used Toyota in Gucci sunglasses and a three-piece Savile Row suit? I'm not entirely sure this is true, actually. You can get out of a used Toyota in Gucci sunglasses and a three-piece suit and create the same impression as stepping outside of a Maybach. But you know what? Let's go with it. With TrueCar, you can connect with a local certified dealer of your choosing so you can lock in guaranteed savings off the MSRP. I have no idea what that is, I guess you do. And enjoy a better buying experience. TrueCar customers are more likely to enjoy a faster buying process when they connect with TrueCar certified dealers. Over 2 million cars have been sold to TrueCar users by the TrueCar certified dealer network, and there are over 11,000 TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. You will work directly with the TrueCar certified dealer, and TrueCar users save an average of $3,279 off the... Oh, I know, it's manufacturer's suggested retail price. There we go. So I'm basically like an old person who has to... who's forgot... This is Tom, my producer, in the background, who is back as a special cameo appearance to snigger at me while I attempt to get through the ad break. Thank you for that, Tom. Using the TrueCar website or the TrueCar app, you can easily find the car you want. So when you're ready to buy a new or a used car, visit TrueCar.com or download the TrueCar app to enjoy a better car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states. I have been Milo Yiannopoulos. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Milo Yiannopoulos Show. We are on location in Cannes at the film festival, and I am here with possibly my favourite reality star of all time, with the possible exception of Kim Kardashian, but we'll talk about that. I'm here with Phil Robertson, who is the star of Duck Dynasty, and now also, perhaps more interestingly for a lot of Breitbart readers and listeners, he is the star of Torchbearer. Hi sir, thank you for joining us. Tell us about the movie.
I'm basically narrating an historical account of what happens when empires, or individuals for that matter, when they remove God from as their anchor. And men determine right and wrong instead of God. Men determine good and evil instead of God. The God of the Bible I'm speaking of here. And they also, when you allow men to determine the worth of your life, it seems, historically speaking, they always stand over you at the end of the day, and tyranny begins to rule without end. So that's what the story's about. So they bring it up through Greece and all the idolatry that was there. You view the ruins, once a great power, the Roman Caesars, and what went down there. In the days of the Roman king, Caesar Augustus, is when Jesus appeared. Historically undeniable. He was there. So the story in the Bible is about how Christianity found its roots during the days of the Roman Empire and moved forward unto present day. So it's just a historical account on what mankind tends to do when they remove the God of the Bible from their minds.
This is a slightly more erudite vehicle for you than you've been in up till now. I think there was an assumption with Duck Dynasty that it was something people were going to laugh at, not with. But they ended up actually having a window into your family, seeing how much you love each other, and the humor and compassion and joy that you have with each other. And you ended up being national treasures. Do you think people are going to think of you differently after this movie? Because this shows a side of you. This shows the full Robertson, the theologian, even a scholar slightly. I mean, you have a deep historical perspective on this stuff, and you have a thesis that you follow through history. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that academics do, not typically people that we come to know through reality shows. Do you think this is going to change how people see you?
It's a great question. Jesus himself said, "You will know them. You will know his people." You would think he would have gone into a long dissertation, maybe doctrinal stances and all the theological, but he said, "You'll know them by their love for one another." That's how you'll spot them when you see them. I guessed when I talked to the A&E executives when they ran Duck Dynasty, they were wanting to do the reality show. I said, "Let me guess. Y'all were all seated around in a boardroom, and you were discussing maybe what we can have for a reality show series, and someone way back in the back probably stood up and said, why don't we try to show a functional family?" And I said, probably the next question was from someone else. They said, "Bob, it sounds like a great idea, but where would you find one?" So lo and behold, we had made DVDs about our hunting exploits, and they watched some of those DVDs, and they said, "This group here seems to be jovial, they seem to be full of joy and happy, they're a close-knit family. What about this bunch?" So lo and behold, in the woods of Louisiana, they came down with a film crew. I said, "I don't think this will do much." But what we basically did, by just gathering around a table and thanking God for our meal, people looked at that and said, "That is awesome." So the only thing I can conclude from that is, how could just thanking God for the meal you're fixing to eat be such a profound thing? But the larger point is, if you love God and you love your neighbor and you do what is right, I just don't see the downside to that. So that's where the TV show came from, and then the script about the documentary, The Torchbearer. They're basically saying, why don't we infuse that into all cultures? Humans tend to forget easily on how cruel they can be to one another. We tend to forget. And when we start determining what life is worth, what's good, what's evil, what's right and wrong, let humans determine that, it never turns out well. You have to have some kind of standard that you rely on. In my case, it is the God of the Bible.
If you're listening to this on the podcast, you are hearing a helicopter in the background because we are recording live from the pier in Cannes, so apologies for that. Let me ask you, you said you were surprised that godliness and living well and thanking God for food sort of was considered awesome by these producers. They hadn't really seen it before. So let me ask you a question about the direction America maybe is headed in the media, the entertainment industries, academia. For me, it seems like there's two problems. One is that, whether it's the women or gays or blacks or whatever, they seem to be visiting upon Christians just the kind of intolerance that they claim was, that I'm sure was visited on them for a long time. Now you've got these guys phoning around trying to find a pizzeria, that doesn't want to do a lesbian wedding, and then bullying these guys, putting them out of business or whatever, or trying to. And at the same time, you've got this extraordinary restriction on free speech. The limits of what can be thought and said, particularly for conservatives and people of faith.
It's nothing new. That's not new.
Because you do this in the film, you go through this in the movie, don't you?
When Jesus picked his disciples, the ones who would follow him, the first thing he told them, he said, "I want you guys to understand something. Blessed are you when people hate you. Blessed are you when people exclude you. You are blessed when people insult you. You are blessed when people reject your name as evil because of me. What one needs to remember is the Bible story from start to finish, going all the way back to the predictions from all of the patriarchs and the prophets, that God would one day come down in flesh, live as a human, mistake-free, no mistakes, keep every command.
They call that Reaganing, you know.
Yeah. Knowing,
going 24 hours without making a mistake, it's called Reaganing, you know that?
Yeah, knowing that in the end he would be murdered, strung up on a tree, and brutalized and killed. If humanity would turn on the perfect God who became the perfect human, perfect, and string him up on a cross and brutalize him and kill him, you would say, if you never made a mistake and caught that kind of vitriol and hatred, what would happen to his followers? So he warned them, told them, and then he told them how to operate with such persecution. Love your enemies, pray for them, loan to people without expecting to get anything back. He said, pray for your enemies, forgive them, be generous. If they want your jacket, give them the shirt off your back. Be good to them. Don't return evil for evil. So all those concepts in the Bible, what we basically do is, what a lot of people don't understand is, when we talk about sin, whatever it is, God has written the lists down. He identifies what sin is. So when someone says, well, do you think it's right? I'm like, hold a minute. And I'll let them read a verse. All scriptures God breathed. Let them read a verse and say, read that verse and see if you're in there. And the lists are there. It's a standard of conduct. So we just show people that. You say, what about the people who reject that and say, well, I'm going to keep living like I always have. I'm not buying it. We love them. We move on. We tell the next one. We love them, and we move on.
It's that compassion. Most people, I think, if they were to listen to the press coverage around you and a few comments you made, you know, whatever, they're not going to get that side.
I've been called everything but a godly man. Someone says, what did you do? And I said,
except what you are.
A guy asked me about a particular sin, and I read him a verse that covers it. I probably made a mistake when I explained some of the female and male genitalia. I might have made a mistake there by being so graphic.
Right.
But I was just simply saying, male, female, God said that, here's the standard of conduct. And what most people don't realize is, after that list is given, the Apostle Paul is the one who wrote that on behalf of God. He said to those people, when he gave them the list, and it covers 10 sins, he said, and that's what some of you at Corinth, Port Town, that's what some of you were. But you were washed, you were justified, you were sanctified. There's always a way out. We just turn from the sins, we give them to Jesus, he takes them by shedding his blood, and on top of that, he guarantees you can be raised from the dead. So, we just show them the sins, and I can show you a mighty throng of people who were tangled up in all kinds of sexual sins, homosexual sins, heterosexual sins, lying, stealing, drug abuse, prostitution. I can show you a mighty throng of individuals who renounced their sinful ways, turned to Jesus. They went from evil men and women to great, godly, good men and women. I can show you a mighty throng, including this one. I used to get high and drunk and laid myself, but I didn't know what I just told you. I didn't know that.
I too have been guilty of. I've had some disreputable tendencies in my life. Do you?
I guess that you probably were a sinner like me.
Well, I think I probably still am.
But you're a lot
I'm
neater.
a Catholic, you see.
You're a lot neater than I am. You know what I'm saying? But the sins are the same.
The sins are the same. But, I'm a Catholic, you see. I think it was Evelyn Waugh who says, if other kinds of Christians are Christians because they think they're good people. Catholics are Catholics because they know they're not. It's a church for sinners, And he also said, if you think I'm bad now, imagine how much worse I would be without God.
Yeah.
So, we take a slightly different view of it to you guys. Let me ask you...
I know one thing, Christianity and my faith in Jesus, it worked for me for sure, and I've seen a mighty throne that it worked for, so I'm saying, this will work, no doubt.
I want to get your thoughts on the current presidential candidates, who you like and who you don't like. And in particular, he doesn't seem to be the godliest of men, but are you excited by the extent to which Donald Trump, I think a little bit like you, sort of maybe sticks a middle finger up to the progressive establishment, speaks common language, plain sense, and is annoying all the right people. Are you a fan of his?
Well, originally out of the 17 that ran for office, I looked at the list, and because of the Supreme Court decisions that can really do you a lot of harm, right, especially as a Christian, I looked at that and I said, okay, who is a strict constitutionalist out of these 17? Ted Cruz came to mind. Mm-hmm. I said, strict constitutionalist. His daddy is a preacher of the gospel, raised in a godly home. He's a Bible man, so I went with a Bible man and a strict constitutionalist. It didn't work out for him. He's out, and Mr. Trump is in. As a loyal Republican, I'm going with the man that the Republican Party said, the people. We want that guy right there.
Now, you've said that you would love to be his faith advisor.
In jest.
Well, no, so you wouldn't want to be his faith advisor.
But hey, if he asked me, I would say sure. Yeah. Sure.
Now I want to ask you, he seems to be connecting with young people in a way that the churches have struggled to, in a way that politics has struggled to, and in a way that now even journalism is struggling to. What is it, do you think, about him, and I think you have this in common with him actually, that enlivens and excites younger people, gets them interested in talking about things? So what is it do you think that he has that you have too, I think?
Well, it's two sides of a very different coin. I'm not into politics per se. All men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. The flowers fall, the grass withers, but the word of the Lord stands forever. Politicians, prime ministers, presidents, kings, they come and they go. But God is always there. I am into pointing people to the God of creation so that their sins can be removed. God has done that for them. The sacrifice of Jesus himself, God in flesh, and he guarantees human beings can be raised from the dead. Well, if you just think about that, I know of no story that makes those claims, no religion that makes those claims with a historically accurate, archaeologically sound individual, Jesus of Galilee. Our calendar's based on him. It's 2016 Anno Domini, year of our Lord. You count back, you get to 1. That's the year Jesus showed up. Well, what were all the years before Jesus showed up? You call them all the years before Jesus showed up. I'm just saying, I would at least think the one your calendar's based on, he should be investigating. What happened? I've told you what happened. I'm all in. In Trump's case, he's running for political office. I'm not interested in that so much. Politicians are merely a reflection of the electorate. You say America's problem, she's way down where there's sins. She elects people that don't do well. It's a reflection of them. Our culture has been spiraling downward.
You think that's what's created bad politicians, because the culture is bad?
It's our culture. It's us. We have met the enemy, and the enemy is us.
I mean, they say, we get the politicians we deserve.
And we
so that's
holler at the politicians, and someone looks around and says, well, who put them in there? And We did.
But this is what people are saying about Trump. You know, he's like the anti-politician. You know, we've had this for so long, and the Republicans, the Democrats, people are sick of them. They're all the same. They had the politicians we deserved for a while, and now we voted in somebody who's going to blow it all up.
He came forth because of the frustration, the anger, the not knowing what's fixing to happen next. We see our culture sliding into the abyss. It's happened with all of them. America is not going to collapse. It is in the process of collapsing now. Therefore, they want someone, the people, they said, we need to get out of the old line politicians and we need a fresh face.
Try something new.
And look, you can get away with a lot when people are frustrated and anger at
He
the
does get
status
away
quo.
with a lot. He
They're
does get away
saying,
with a
let's
lot."
try anything. They say, well, what's his name? Donald Trump.
People are so angry they're even prepared to go for Trump.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think the biggest threat is to the continued success of America? Do you think it's external threats from the Islamic world? Do you think it's stuff at home that we're getting wrong?
It's what I just intimated earlier. You say it's a spiritual fix.
Mm-hmm.
If America would repent, now I'm a guy that can call them to repentance. What can they say? I love them. I'm saying we need to repent, renounce our sin. We need to raise our children with moms and dads at the helm, male and female. It's the godly thing to do. We have to vet our thinking through the Bible. You say, what does God call marriage? He says it's between a man and a woman. Look, I have no option there. He has spoken.
It's pretty straightforward.
Straightforward. So as a godly man, I said, what did he say about marriage? Well, it's between a man and a woman. Case closed. Out of decency, decency and common sense, I'm a grown man. I'm not going up into a women's bathroom when they're putting their Maybelline on. I'm not going there. You say, why? Out of respect for women. If I barged up in my own wife's bathroom and she has her friends there, if I come walking up in there, she said, what are you doing? I'm either lost or
You're
very
up to
confused.
Something. You're up to something. Well,
I'm up to something.
Very confused
I'm just
is probably
saying
the one.
it works better if we just do what God says to begin with. Stay with Him. You'll be better off. I don't have time to tell you about the horrible, debilitating diseases that follow immoral conduct.
Well,
Coincidence?
Coincidence? It's interesting, like, God keeps being proven right. You know, when you look at the horrible consequences of the pill, you know, it's like, somehow God keeps being proven right. I'm going to ask you one more frivolous question before I let you go. I have a t-shirt in my store that people seem to like, and it says, God hates fags, but He hates feminists more. Who does God hate more?
One, God does not hate the people. He hates their sin. I would simply say, renounce your sin. God loves you. I've seen this work so many times, all kinds of sins. You say most sins are something, usually the sexual thing is in there to some degree. Last week, we converted a girl. She said, I need help. I don't know where to turn. We told her the good news about Jesus. I baptized her in the river. I said, go tell your husband sent you now. She said, I don't have a husband. I said, well, I see this child here. What is he? And she said, well, he's my fiance. I said, go back home and tell him what you've done. Your sins are removed. Tell him there's no more sex coming from you to him until he marries you. And if he wants to talk, we'll talk. She goes home, gets him, brings him to me. And we share the good news of Jesus. And he looked at that and he said, I said, what do you think? And he said, I need to repent of my sins and get married and then be baptized. I said, let's do it. I said, when do you want to do that? He said, right now. I said, let me get a preacher. So I called the preacher up. He comes down. The marriage ceremony is performed in my living room. When he said, you now can kiss the bride. He kisses the bride. He can have sex with her now because he's married to her. God said, one woman, one man, keep your sex. So look,
all is
he
right
does that,
world.
and then we take him and we walk him to the river. So this was a conversion where a man gets married and is reborn, is born again in a matter of 15 minutes. That's how it works.
In today's global information economy, things can happen that fast.
I'm telling you.
Well, it sounds like there's hope for all of us. Phil Robertson.
There's hope for everyone.
Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you. You've been listening to the Milo Yiannopoulos Show, the podcast that launched 1,000 therapy sessions for triggered snowflakes. Thanks for tuning in, and please do subscribe on iTunes, leave us a comment, a rating, whatever you like. Our producer is Tom Cicotta. Our researchers are Will Ross and Michael Poole. Our resident German, Mark Geppert, ensures the trains run on time, and our sound engineer, John Fitch, can be found at sturbridgesound.com. Download new episodes of the Milo Yiannopoulos Show at podcast1.com, and you can also listen to us at Breitbart.